eventually near Manchester by the Sea in a little bit here. So
Tornado warning.
at that, not only are you dealing with a tremendous amount of instability to the atmosphere, it does look like it is very close here. To just north and east of Boston, Chelsea, Everett, Revere area, up into the Ipswich area, Hamilton area, eventually there as well. So we continue to track. Looks like that is going to be moving toward the coastline over the next half hour or so. So it's that Route 1 stretch north of the city of Boston and back to the Chelsea, Everett, Revere areas, points north and east. So that's going to be the focus here, where you just kind of sit on these velocity scans and you watch them closely. We've seen these tornado warnings occur back across eastern New York earlier this morning. We saw it occur in southern Worcester County this morning as well. And that was prompted by the rotation that was strong back into northeastern Connecticut. And looking at some of those scans matching up where the velocities were really strong and tight, the rotation was tight, you do have tree damage out that way. So it's conceivable that there was a brief tornado that touched down in Thompson, Connecticut. That's what prompted the tornado warning back into southern Worcester County earlier. And it's constantly this back edge that we're following,
Essex,
going through eastern Massachusetts now,
Suffolk
that
County
will
is
be capable of producing a brief
till
tornado.
1:45 p.m.
Area again, moving into Nahant. You see almost this little light shading of green there. It's kind of a gray area, getting almost a little bit of a notch coming into
12:55
some
p.m.
strong velocities on that 1A side. This is the area that I'm
So
focusing
1
on at the
p.m.,
moment, which is the east of
45
Franklin
minutes.
Park, very close to 1A, right along that coastline. You get into like a
Very
Revere
close.
Beach area. Watching that very closely. Nahant as
right
well,
there.
as this rotating part of the thunderstorm continues its journey off to the northeast. Radar indicated rotation at this point. Nothing confirmed by National Weather Service as of yet, but we're susceptible to these brief tornadoes in a tropical environment that we're in today. And when I say tropical environment, this is the remnants of Fred that are moving on through. With the remnants of Fred moving on through, we certainly have had copious amounts of moisture. You get the instability, you get a lot of rotation to the atmosphere, a lot of spin to the atmosphere as we continue to watch this move off to the northeast. So let's recap the areas under the tornado warning. Again, this is where we see some of these red polygons showing up. This includes the Salem area, all the way up and down that Route 1 stretch. This storm is moving off to the northeast at about 15 miles an hour. So it's moving, but it's also, kind of taking its time too. It's not racing off at like 30 or 40 miles an hour. I want to go back to the velocity, take a wider look at what's going on in general up through the North Shore to see if we can find any more rotation there. And you can see that you get some of these bright pinks showing up. There's your rotation. Let's zoom into that spot right there, a little bit close to 1A again in Chelsea, Everett, Revere. If we go north here, up 107 and 1A, you can see some straight line wind damage potential too in Swampscott, as you do have some of these bright pinks showing up. Saugus area, Lynn, Nahant, farther off to the northeast, I should say, all under that tornado warning. This goes up into the Marblehead area as well. Just checking some of the scans here. You can see a little bit of rotation showing up for sure. At times, it's a little stronger out near the Revere area, and that's the part of the cell that I'm concerned with, that there may be some a brief ramp up in the rotation, enough to produce a tornado. So this is moving off to the northeast. This is going to be approaching Lynn, probably within about 10 minutes or so, looking through the Nahant area as well. And then there's some more strong winds aloft even north of there. Danvers, Beverly, Hamilton, Ipswich, up into the Rowley area. You're not under the tornado warning, Hamilton and Ipswich, but we are watching that severe thunderstorm warning that's capable of producing some damage or wind gusts in your area. The main concern is going to be with this rotation that's close to the Revere area. It's now moving just north. I can see this moving toward Lynn, up into the Swampscott area. So we're going to be watching this very closely as that rotation in those locations does show signs of being at least strong on one side. What you want to see or what you don't want to see. I mean, you don't want to see that 56 velocity match up with strong velocities in the other way. But when you start talking about 56 in one direction and then some on the opposite direction just west of there, it's indication of some pretty good rotation. So this is the storm that we have to watch closely as you're going in the opposite direction with some of the wind speeds, and going in the opposite direction at a fairly wide range too. I mean, 56 mile per hour gust, even if you don't get a tornado out of this from Nahant up to Swampscott, you are going to be dealing with some strong wind gusts, perhaps damaging wind gusts to 50 or 60 miles an hour that would be capable of downing a tree. But the overall theme here is to watch the rotation that's now moving into Lynn and moving off to the northeast. About 4 minutes away from Lynn, about 17 minutes away from Salem, and about 19 minutes away from Marblehead. And that's track with this moving off to the northeast at about 15 miles an hour. Torrential rains with this system too. This is not something you want to go out and try to find a funnel or look at it. You want to be in your safe space. If you're in the Revere, if you're in Lynn, if you're in Nahant, you're going to need to get into an interior room, lowest level of the building that you're in, and away from any doors and windows, because when you start exhibiting rotation in these tropical systems, you quickly can ramp it up into a quick spin-up tornado. It might only last a couple of minutes, but it can produce damage, and unfortunately folks in Revere know all too well just a couple of summers ago, or several summers ago, of what happened. Not saying that that's exactly what's going to happen this go around, but you got to be guarding against the potential of a tornado quickly touching down and then lifting up, and that's why there is a tornado warning that's in effect across portions of northeastern Massachusetts, which includes Revere, Lynn, Salem, Nahant. Soaking rains, flooding rains, tropical downpours. We've seen that back into Worcester County. We're seeing that again now lining up along Route 1. So if you do not have to go anywhere, do not go anywhere. This is the kind of rain that's going to flood out the roadways pretty quickly, and that includes you folks that are not in the tornado warning. Obviously, if you're in the tornado warning, shouldn't be going anywhere anyway. You should be hunkering down as this storm system goes on through and passes on by. Looking at the velocity scans here.
Ooh, look at that.
Taking another look at how fast the winds are aloft.
Hey, look at that.
Rotation. So some rotation here on the backside. More concerned right now. I mean, you're seeing some velocities over Swampscott of about 60 miles an hour. So again, even if you don't get a tornado, you're watching these winds come down out of the clouds at about 60 miles an hour. That's going to be capable of producing down trees, down power lines. That cell continues to move off to the northeast toward Marblehead, and then on the backside there is some rotation in here that we've got to keep a careful eye on as it heads up Route 1 and 1A across northeastern Massachusetts. So all eyes on what's going on in northeastern Massachusetts. The tornado warning is in effect until 1:45 as the cell continues its movement off to the north and to the east. Again, the most severe part of this cell looks like it's right across Lynn at the moment. So if you are in Lynn, you should be in your safe spot, interior room, lowest level of the house, the building you're in. That's where we see some of the strongest rotation with this storm system. And also in Swampscott, you're looking at some of the strongest winds aloft. So as I mentioned before, even if there's not a tornado touching down, there is the potential for some damaging wind gust, as we have a lot of strong winds about 2,000 feet up, measured about 60 miles an hour on the velocity scan. So we got to continue to keep an eye on that. Have you guys, Brandon and Mark, have you seen any reports from those areas coming on in?
Not seeing any damage. Not seeing any damage. We've been checking online, everywhere we can find. But, you've been talking about just how high these winds are, up to 60 miles per hour, and how it's hitting the North Shore like Lynn and Swampscott. I mean, that's right on the water, and you're saying there's certainly a possibility of down trees. Maybe this is a silly question, but right on the water there, could we see some storm surge from this?
No, you're gonna be pushing this in the opposite direction. If there's any straight line winds, you push that off. Storm surge is generally for hurricanes like the one we may experience Sunday into Monday. So you're all boating interest. You don't want to be caught in a thunderstorm as is. So all on the beach. So if you're out there, at the coastline, do not venture out in something like this. You can, if you do get a tornado, you can get one over the water too. It's just a water spout. Seeing indications of that rotation very close to Lynn at the moment here. Back across this area, 107, 129, to the coastline, very close to the hunt. So you take a wider view. You can see some storm swings at the moment. Salem, Marblehead, right around 129. This goes through Cape Ann. This is also
Cape
right
Ann.
along. It's well inside Route 1, but in this area, looking at velocities aloft, running about 40, 50, even 60 miles an hour. So it's the velocities that are aloft, 2,000, couple thousand feet up, that are showing the potential for wind damage in terms of strong wind gusts. And you're also seeing a little bit of rotation on the backside of the storm system. And it's tough in these tropical environments because even if you're not seeing at the moment a radar indicated tornado, if you have strong enough rotation, it doesn't take all that long to briefly produce a spin-up tornado that might only last like 5 minutes, and then your damage is done, it lifts up, and and that's it. I'm pretty sure we saw that in northeastern Connecticut earlier this morning, seeing some tree damage in Thompson, Connecticut, and northeastern Connecticut there. That matched up where there was a brief burst of intense velocities that were kind of a couplet, meaning go pretty strong but in opposite directions. It also matched up on the radar where the correlation coefficient was showing a little bit of leaves and debris up into the air, and that's what helped prompt that tornado warning that did go into Worcester County. It has constantly been this back edge of the storm system. These